Emma Frost is the newest character added to the game and is amongst the strongest vanguards to play currently. Between her powerful beam and spin kick finisher, she is a menace no matter where the enemies stand. My name is Paz, an Eternity player on the competitive ladder, and I'm going to tell you all of the things you actually need to know in order to pop off and carry on Emma Frost. Before we get started with her abilities, understand that Emma is a character that gets a lot done by taking advantage of fights that last a while by charging up her beam. This allows her to get close to then finish off players with her diamond form. She is the most versatile tank in the game by far. If you do not prioritize getting your beam charged as fast as possible, you will lose. It is just that simple. With this in mind, let's hop right into discussing the kit of Emma Frost. Starting with her primary fire, we have the Telepathic Pulse, a hit scan beam of energy with 15 meters of range and no damage fall off. The beam has an ammo count of 70 with 10 ammo being consumed for every second that the beam is held down. The way the damage works is really interesting though, and it kind of functions like Symmetra in Overwatch 2 if you played the newer versions of her. Essentially, the beam does more and more damage the higher it is charged, with no headshot multiplier being possible. Without any charge built, the beam does a flat 70 damage per second. At 99, it ramps up to deal 120 damage per second. And then finally, when the beam is fully charged, it deals a whopping 150 damage per second, which is absolutely insane, by the way. That's enough to melt a Luna Snow in less than 2 seconds. The way you build damage is by shooting any enemy entity. This could be enemy heroes, shields, clones, and even the crystal that you pull out from them. Shooting enemy players and shields builds charge at a rate of 10 per second, clones at 5 per second, and lastly, the crystal you pull out of their bodies at a rate of 15 per second. If Emma doesn't shoot any enemy player for 3 seconds, the charge she has built up begins to deplete rapidly at a rate of 30 per second. This can be stopped by either shooting a target again, by switching into diamond form, or by using her ultimate. We will talk more about the latter two options in a bit. Alright, but now that we understand how the beam works and how you build charge, it is important to understand a few niche interactions and also how you should play around the beam. First off, if you were ever in a 1v1 against another Emma, you aren't going to want to put your shield down right away. This is because you will just give the enemy Emma more charge than you, and it'll be a whole lot harder to win the 1v1. The only time that this isn't true is if the enemy Emma is an absolute aiming machine that perfectly tracks you with 100% accuracy, but the approach is still the same. Do not give her a shield to build beam charge off of for free unless you know you can get away from her after the fact safely. Outside of this interaction, other important tank interactions to think about include the other strong tanks currently, Magneto, Groot, and one could even argue Captain America. You cannot build charge off of Magneto's shield, but you can for his bubbles. Groot walls do not allow you to build charge off of, which is a big setback in the matchup for Emma against Groot. Lastly, you can build charge off of Captain America's shield without the beam getting bounced back at you, making Emma a pretty good answer to him. Outside of matchups, the start of fights with Emma aren't about eliminating the enemies right away. Just like how support is about building ult charge as fast as possible, building charge on Emma is key first. Then the rest of her kit feels a whole lot more consistent since it's easier to get enemies lower in HP so that she can take them out with a few melees. Play 15 meters away, build up charge, and then you can pressure what you need to close the distance and kick them dead with diamond form. But before we talk about diamond form, let's talk about her other normal form abilities, starting with her Psychic Spear. Emma shoots out a projectile bound to E by default, where if it connects with an enemy, creates a visible sentience crystal in front of Emma that is 25% of the target's remaining HP. Emma is the only one that can hit the crystal she pulls from someone, and when she does shoot the crystal, 5 damage is dealt to the target per instance of damage taken by the crystal until it shatters, where 25% of the target's HP is then dealt to the enemy. This means a soul sentience of Groot is a bit more than 200 health when he is full HP, or a squishy like Spider-Man, for example, is only about 63 health when he is full HP. So while hitting tanks with the sentience does more damage with the explosion, it is also much harder to break quickly compared to squishy targets since they will naturally have more health to work with. The nice part about this ability though is that you can use Emma's primary beam to actually shoot through the crystal to deal damage to 2 targets at once, which is pretty cool. You can also use her diamond form abilities to smash the crystal, but knockback has no effect to it. Something super important to note though is that if the target you extract the sentience from runs 15 meters away from the crystal, the same range as your primary fire attack, the crystal will disappear and the target will not take 25% of their health as damage. There is a blue circle that shows you the radius when they are about to leave, which is pretty nice. So while you can snipe people from 24 meters away with the crystal projectile, you want to be as close as you reasonably can so that the enemies have a harder time running away, since the crystal doesn't bounce off of them and rather spawns in between you and the target at max range, giving them more time to get away. You also do not want to be too close to the target either though, because then there will be no space for the crystal to spawn to begin with. While there are some cool combos you can do with the crystal in your diamond form, the majority of the time you are using your crystal to farm as much charge as possible to speedrun to max charge. As one of my pro friends told me, the crystal is an excellent attrition tool that expedites the process by giving you the power to end the fight even faster. But if you really want niche tech, you can take Venom's soul and Jeff's soul out of their bodies when they are in the ground, making it much easier to take care of them when they ult your team. Alright, but let's talk about the last of Emma's normal form abilities, her shield, the Mind's Aegis. When pressing right click, Emma begins to place a levitating shield. However, the shield doesn't materialize until after the player lets go of right click. This means that while you are placing the shield, no damage gets blocked as it is moving forward. It only blocks when it is sitting still. The important numbers regarding the ability are as follows. The shield has 500 health, so less than Doctor Strange's shield. When broken, it takes 4 seconds to come back online. And when in Emma's inventory, the shield repairs itself at a rate of 70 HP per second. Emma can reposition the shield after 3 seconds once the shield materializes. So if you place the shield down, it will go on a 3-second cooldown. And if it then breaks, it'll go on a 4-second cooldown where it will spawn with 140 health off cooldown, since the regeneration starts 2 seconds after it breaks. Okay, but now that we know how the shield works, how do we use the shield in practice? It is important to note that this shield is not super tanky and doesn't really function like a shield that is meant to soak up a ton of damage. Rather, it is a shield with excellent utility capabilities that allows Emma to close the distance on her enemies and take them down before everyone dies. She's a very aggressive Vanguard because of this. With this in mind, the way the shield is commonly used is to deny an off angle from a DPS and force them to either waste time breaking the shield or force them to take a new angle instead, while Emma wins the fight on the front line with an easy rotation in. However, the shield has other uses too. For example, the shield can be used in the front line if your main shield breaks or goes down. Think about Magneto's shield. It doesn't last forever. So if you play with your core, you should wait until your Magneto's shield goes down or he looks to recharge, allowing you to use your shield to continue enabling the team in the meantime. This won't always be the case though. Sometimes shielding the off angle is just better. Because the shield doesn't have a ton of health though, it is really good at blocking specific types of damage, which is why I like using it on the off angle more often than not. Think about abilities like Hela's ultimate, Iron Man ultimates, Hawkeye arrows, Moon Knight shots, you name it. You could also even set the shield up on an off angle for your own DPS to start the fight on defense so that your DPS can get active and look for a pick earlier on. It's really up to you though. This shield technique is just like Invisible Woman's shield in Execution, except it is stronger because it has more health and you don't need an ally to put it down. Another way you can use the shield is to block healing from an enemy tank when you want to go in for a kill with your diamond form right after. You can shield, choke slam, and then kick the tank into your team for a free pick. Times you should always look to shield for yourself though are when you are looking to switch into your diamond form so that you can have some cover to play off of, or when you look to use your ultimate so you have an easier time surviving and possessing the enemy team. Don't waste the shield and try to think outside of the box so that you have an easier time closing the distance on the enemy, allowing you to spin kick the enemy squishies into next week. Now that we covered all of Emma's basic form abilities though, let's talk about her diamond form and how she enters it by pressing shift by default. Once the transformation is complete, Emma gains a bonus 30% reduction to all incoming damage for 8 seconds, while also gaining access to a new primary fire and 2 new abilities replacing her right click and E respectively. If you ever want to go back to her normal form, all you have to do is press shift again before the 8-second duration runs out, which can sometimes be nice if you happen to mess up, but you're not gonna want to mess up because then that ability is gonna be on a 15-second cooldown. Something important to review that we talked about earlier is that when you go into diamond form, the energy decay rate of your beam in the normal form stops and resets upon leaving the diamond form, which is really important to think about as it will keep your uptime consistent on the character. Think about it like this. Before, your decay rate would be 3 seconds, and now if you go into diamond form, it's 6 seconds. You can also go into your diamond form and extract a soul from a target at the exact same time if you hit both abilities simultaneously. You don't have to do this every time, but since the cooldown of the crystal is less than the duration of diamond form, it's actually pretty nice if both cooldowns happen to line up. Anyway, while in her diamond form, her left click beam gets replaced by the Faceted Fury, which enables Emma to start beating the sense out of her ops with a bunch of wallops across the jaw. The first and second hit deal 50 damage each, while the third deals 70, and the final fourth hit deals 80 damage, with the total whole combo of all of those melees hitting equaling to 250 damage in total. Now, that's a lot of damage, but keep in mind that this is all in melee range. What makes this damage lethal is when you combine it with her spinning kick and choke slam. Starting with her choke slam, the Carbon Crush, Emma dashes at her enemies and picks up the first target in a 7-meter distance and slams them to the ground, dealing 30 damage behind where you initially picked them up. The ability is on a 5-second cooldown, meaning you only get 2 of these per crystal form. The damage isn't what makes it good though. What makes this ability great is the animation that stuns your target for a little less than 2 seconds. This means you can straight up take targets out of the fight, but also cancel their ultimates too if you time it right. Yeah, this means that you can pretty much cancel anything in the game. Strange ults, Scarlet Witch ults, Loki, a lot of ultimates, okay? But if you are more interested in the niche interactions, you should look at the Mythbusters video we just did on the channel because there are a lot of myths to bust with this character. What this ability is really nice for is the stun on top of the combo potential it sets up with her spinning kick, so let's talk about that next. Emma's crystal kick is bound to right click in the diamond form by default, hitting enemies initially for 50 damage, and then an additional extra 100 damage if any target in that cleaving range that you kicked is later knocked into a wall. The knockback applied by the kick is 10 meters, and while Groot walls do count as walls, friendly and enemy bodies sadly do not, so just keep that in mind. Because of this, Emma really likes to trap enemy squishies in enclosed spaces by using her beam to pressure them out of the open first. The ability is on a 2-second cooldown, meaning you are getting about 3 kicks on average a diamond form if you are being really efficient. Now that we know all of the diamond form ability damage counts though, let's start talking about combos. First, let's talk about the basic kick combo at close range. Chokeslam plus 2 melees and a kick into a wall does a total of 280 damage. That's enough to eliminate a squishy target. If we add another melee hit into the mix, that combo goes to a total of 350 damage, which is definitely enough to eliminate a squishy if they don't receive any healing in the process. But that's what a pre-placed shield is for, right? If we really wanted to go full all in on a combo, we would just chokeslam into 4 melees into then a kick, propelling the damage to 430, which doesn't affect any meaningful breakpoints, not right now at least. Outside of this basic combo, you can also use the Soul Crystal and Diamond form at the same time to immediately punch and kick the crystal as your transformation comes through, making the combos even more consistent. This won't happen a lot though, since the Soul Crystal is used more often for building charge with your beam than confirming picks. This means you can take the soul out of Groot in Diamond form at the same time, choke slam him, him, hit him and the crystal 4 times with your melees, and then kick him into a wall for a literal one-shot combo. Yeah, I'm not lying about that. It's kind of insane. The problem is, rarely will anyone be standing this still, close to a wall, and also next to your soul crystal to really find value that way. Just keep that in mind, because sometimes, I mean, when you look for a combo, it works out. Let's close out Emma's kit with her ultimate, Psionic Seduction. Upon cast, Emma shoots out a long-ranged, persistent cone-shaped spell field, lasting 6 seconds that deals 80 damage per second. The ultimate shoots over a range of 30 meters, with damage fall off starting at 10 meters. At 30 meters, the ult does 40 damage per second. The ultimate also does less damage the further away the target is from the center of her cone. So to make this simpler, think of the ultimate as a beam that just does a lot of damage, heavily concentrated in the middle, while a bit of extra damage radiates off to the sides. If you really want a target to die, you gotta look at them specifically and be pretty close to them too. But the damage isn't why Emma's ultimate is good. The ultimate is good because it can take control of enemies and force them to walk at you if you possess them. Essentially, when an enemy is in Emma's ultimate, they get 10 stacks of mind control per second, and when they hit 15, they lose control of their character for a second and a half, forcing them to walk at the Emma in the time frame as well. This is all conveniently shown to the player via this logo over the top of the enemy's head. Note that enemies can only be possessed once per ultimate. This ultimate might sound overpowered, but you have to think about how the enemies are going to react to you using the ultimate. First, when you use this ultimate, the enemies are going to try and take you down if you are exposed, and you cannot go into diamond form before you use the ultimate to reduce the amount of damage you're taking while ulting as a result. You either need to wait for your team to be there to shield you, or you need to pre-place a shield for yourself to walk up and possess the enemies. Second, the next best option for the enemies, if they cannot eliminate you in time, is to just run away or get behind a shield like Emma's shield, for example, Strange shield, Magneto shield, you get the vibe. So it is super important that you break these shields before you use your ultimate so that you can confirm more consistent mind controls over the enemy team. This also goes for the environment though. If you see the enemy squishies and know that they are able to get around cover easily, while you might really want to just rip your ultimate anyways, it is important to stay calm and set yourself up first by either asking your teammates to break the terrain around you or wait until later in the fight. Situations that are really good to use this ultimate on are if the enemy uses a static support ultimate like Invisible Woman, since it will force possessed enemies to walk out of safety and die as a result. Another way to use this ultimate is to counter the dive the enemy is throwing at your supports. If the enemies are really investing to destroy your backline, a simple ult to confirm 2 picks will win you the fight. Just because it doesn't show up on the kill feed does not mean that it is not a super valuable ultimate. One of my favorite ways to use the ultimate though is to counter really important DPS ultimates that my team is not ready to counter yet with theirs. This could look like mind controlling an enemy Star-Lord, sure, but what this really looks like is mind controlling an enemy Moon Knight or Namor right after the enemy Groot ults, forcing them to waste the combo, desynchronizing their ultimate combo as well for the rest of the game. In ranked, this will really mess up the whole flow of the game for the enemy team and can make it extremely infuriating to come back from. Finally, you can also use the ultimate to force enemies off of the map, but this is super niche and almost never happens. A lot of people think that Emma's ultimate is only to be used when the whole enemy team is stacked at the perfect moment, but because it has the interesting utility of mind control, using it to secure really important specific value when the shields are all down in the fight is really what you can do to make or break a game. Now that we understand how Emma Frost works though, let's start transitioning into understanding what counters Emma. In Emma's current state, she is insanely strong. She is a pick or ban character in almost every single game right now behind Groot. Because of this, and the fact that she doesn't generate any charge off of Groot walls, I will say she definitely doesn't do all too well into Groot since he is just insanely OP right now. If she ever gets to charge off of Groot walls though, the matchup is looking so much better for her. I definitely don't see that happening in the future though as a result. DPS that Emma struggles against are really anyone that flies, with Iron Man and Human Torch coming to mind since those are the ones that I really see the most right now. These characters are impossible for Emma to catch with her primary attack and will always be able to attack back with no repercussion into her unless a friendly hit scan does something about it. In terms of what pairs well alongside Emma, Emma does share a team up with Psylocke and Magneto that allows them to create a clone of themselves to boost damage and overall output, which is really solid. Magneto is also already just a solid tank option to pick every game when Groot is banned, and also since Doctor Strange is just really struggling this season after the recent nerfs. As for DPS, I don't mind running Bucky alongside Emma, since you can just CC a target for what feels like years by hooking, slamming, punching, and kicking them all over the place. It's not fun to play against at all. And finally, the supports I like to play with Emma Frost are going to have to be just the overpowered ones. Luna Snow and Rocket are just insane when they aren't banned right now and dominate the meta. Any character that allows Emma to charge up and then get active and likes having some extra time while taking angles or fishing for picks is going to benefit from playing with an Emma Frost. But now that we understand Emma's kit and the people she likes and doesn't like to have in the game with her, let's apply what we've learned into 3 different VODs. For this first VOD, we're going to be reviewing a pro player who plays for FlyQuest, Spark Chief, who has gotten a ton of recommendations to me through a bunch of my other pro friends for being an excellent Emma Frost player. And what I wanted to highlight first, what he is able to do here is watch as right when the fight ends, he's immediately thinking about where is he going to be able to retain his charge on the character. I'll try to get the meter up for you guys. You can see he has 100 charge, the fight is over, and immediately he doesn't just sit on point. He doesn't look to make space for his team through main. He looks to go and try to catch people out when they're going to be walking out of their spawn. This is going to allow him to continue not even just pressuring the enemies, but also continuing to just keep his charge online so that by the time the enemy team comes back, look, he has 100 charge on Emma Frost right now. If you look at the other side of the matchup, Emma Frost is still just building her charge right now, and this is why you can see he is able to just continue absolutely dominating and walking through all of the enemy team, creating so much space for his team simply because he makes stand-up plays. He thinks on his feet and makes sure that he can stay up as much as possible with the charge. Now, the second VOD we're going to be reviewing is actually looking at how he uses his ultimate. We were just watching all of the charge that he was building up. Now I want to highlight, okay, he's had his ultimate this whole time. Why hasn't he used it? This is because if you look at what the enemy team has, they have a magic. They don't really have anything else that he needs to stop. I mean, you're not going to stop a Jeff ult. Mr. Fantastic is pretty much just impervious whenever he wants to be, and you're not going to stop a Rocket or a Luna ult either. The only thing that he can actually use his ult on is maybe if you can get both support ults, which isn't really going to happen. They're always going to have at least one at this rank, or if you want to try to stop the magic ult. So now that he knows that the enemy team has a magic ult, he's going to look to just continue looking to put pressure on like we were talking about before. But look, the moment that this magic goes in, he just starts looking at her, starts trying to pressure her, says, okay, he's trying to get out. The moment that she uses her Death Child, he punches away the enemy team and now is going to look to possess the magic so she can't actually get anything done. And if you look at this here, the Luna Snow on Red's team was actually really smart here. She didn't use her ult until after Spark's ult was down. So now they are going to be able to retaliate with 12 seconds of Luna Snow ult instead of like 8 seconds, which is probably going to allow them to win this fight in the long term. He finds a pick on Jeff the Shark, and from here on, it's just very easy for this team to then retaliate with a 6v5 advantage and live against the enemy Emma Frost ult. This is something that support players need to start thinking about too when Emma has ult, so it's actually a really important case to get right. And for the final VOD, we're still going to be watching Spark Chief, the same map. He went absolutely crazy this game that he sent me. But I wanted to show this because he goes into diamond form in a weird way here that I didn't really talk about in the God. I feel like I always said, yo, you choke slam first, and then you kick, and then you punch. But in this situation, he sees that there's a way to displace the enemies so that he actually gets more time to fight them here. And we're going to replay this back just a little bit more from a third-person point of view so that you guys can actually see how genius this is. You can see that the enemy team, they're trying to walk in through this tight corridor. So obviously you're going to use diamond form. I mean, I could see it coming from a mile away, but it's the way that he uses this part of the environment to further make it so that they cannot get healing in the reality that maybe a Luna Snow is just going to come up a little late here and try to heal them. This is absolutely crazy. He looks to displace them first with a AoE right click and then look for the choke slam, which is going to confirm that pick so much easier and then Doctor Strange just dies shortly thereafter. Now, if there was more people in this situation, it would have looked a lot better and a lot more impactful. For example, if Luna Snow was right here, they can't see if they're all right here. So this is like a really cool play that he made that is something that's not necessarily creating tons of value in the one that we saw, the situation we saw, but in a professional match, this is something that he would be doing to confirm those two picks regardless of if there was healing there or not. So all in all, Spark Chief is a crazy good player to look out for, and I've honestly learned a lot from this guy. And that closes out today's guide for Emma Frost in Marvel Rivals. If you have any questions, make sure to send them in the comments down below, as well as asking me live right now here on YouTube or on Twitch at twitch.tv/PazSwagger. I stream every day I upload, so be sure to check me out to learn more about everything I talked about today. Thank you guys all so much for watching, but until next time, I've got to peace out and Paz out. I'll see you in the next one.